There is a terrifying silence in this image. If you were to walk past it in a gallery, glancing only for a second, you might mistake it for a scene of romance. It looks like a fairy tale, but look closer. Look at the hands. Notice the pale, wet fingers wrapping around the man's forearm. Notice the hand resting on his tunic. Notice the way the girl in the center is pulling him, ever so gently, not toward her lips for a kiss, but downward. We are witnessing the final second of a man's life. In the next breath, the water will close over his head, the ripples will settle, and the surface of the pond will return to a glassy perfection, as if he had never existed at all. This is Hylas and the Nymphs, painted by John William Waterhouse in 1896. It is one of the most mesmerizing, haunting, and controversial images in the history of British art. It is a painting that has been attacked, worshipped, and even banned. But why? What is it about this specific arrangement of figures that unsettles us so deeply? To understand the true horror hidden beneath this beautiful surface, we have to peel back the layers of myth, madness, and the Victorian obsession with the dangerous woman. The story begins with the man. His name is Hylas. In Greek mythology, he was the companion and lover of Heracles, the greatest of all heroes. They were Argonauts, sailing on the quest for the Golden Fleece. Hylas was renowned for his beauty, a beauty so profound that it became his curse. When the Argonauts made landfall on the island of Chios to rest, Hercules sent Hylas to find fresh water. Imagine the scene. He wanders away from the safety of the camp, away from the fires and the warriors. He enters the woods alone. The air is thick and humid. He finds a spring, a hidden sanctuary of nature. He kneels to fill his bronze pitcher. That is the moment Waterhouse freezes in time. The mythology tells us that the naiads, the water nymphs who presided over this spring, were so struck by Hylas's beauty that they decided they could not let him leave. They didn't want to kill him, not in the traditional sense. They wanted to keep him. They wanted to possess him. And in the logic of the ancient world, to be possessed by a god or a spirit meant disappearing from the mortal realm. Waterhouse captures the precise instant of the trance. Hylas is no longer in control. Look at his posture. He is off balance. He is leaning precariously over the edge. One hand holds the pitcher, but it is forgotten, till the water spills uselessly back into the pond. His other arm is braced against the earth, but it is failing. His body is tense, yet his face is slack. He is caught in the gaze of the central nymph. And this is where the painting shifts from a mythological illustration into a psychological thriller. The brilliance of Waterhouse lies in how he depicts the monster. In traditional horror, the monster is ugly. It has fangs, claws, shadow. But here, the monster is exquisite. The 7 nymphs are painted with an ethereal, almost translucent skin. They are indistinguishable from the water lilies that surround them. In fact, they seem to be growing out of the water itself. They are bare, their alabaster skin luminous in the dark but clear water, with yellow and white flowers in their auburn hair. One of them is offering pearls as a treasure to beguile the young Hylas, enticing him away from his task of filling the water. In folklore, pearls were often considered to be the tears of drowned men. The offering of pearls signifies that Hylas is being lured to his death. He is receiving the tears of his own demise. There is a disturbing uniformity to them. Have you noticed that they all look alike? Art historians have long debated the model used for this painting. It is likely they are all variations of a single sitter, perhaps Muriel Foster or another of Waterhouse's muses. By repeating the same face, Waterhouse creates a sense of the uncanny, a hive mind, a collective consciousness with a single predatory goal. Look at their eyes, not one of them looks at the viewer. We are voyeurs, unseen, watching from the bushes. The nymphs are entirely focused on Hylas. Their expressions are difficult to read, and that is the source of the painting's tension. Are they malicious? Not exactly. There is no anger in their faces. Are they lustful? Perhaps, but it is a cold, detached sort of lust. They look at him with a mixture of curiosity and hunger, the way a child might look at a butterfly before tearing its wings off. There is a profound innocence in their cruelty. They do not understand that water fills human lung, or perhaps they simply do not care. To them, dragging Hylas down is an act of love. It is an embrace. Or the fact that this embrace results in death is merely a side effect. This ambiguity, the blurred line between affection and murder, is what makes the image so difficult to look away from. We must also consider the artist himself. John William Waterhouse was painting at the very end of the Victorian era. He was a man out of time, clinging to the romantic ideals of the Pre-Raphaelites, long after the art world had started to move toward modernism. But while his style was romantic, his subjects were increasingly dark. Waterhouse has had a fascination, bordering on obsession, with the femme fatale, the fatal woman. Throughout his career, he painted Circe offering poisoned wine, the sirens luring sailors to shipwrecks, and La Belle Dame sans merci, leaving knights withered on the hillside. Hylas and the nymphs is the climax of this obsession. Why was the Victorian era so fixated on women who kill? You have to remember the context. This was a time of immense social change. Women were beginning to demand rights, independence, and a voice. The new woman was emerging. They're challenging the domestic subservience of the past. For many male artists and the society they inhabited, this shift was terrified. It manifested in their art as a fear of female sexuality. The woman was no longer just a mother or a wife. She was a siren. She was nature itself, beautiful, uncontrollable, and capable of swallowing you whole. In this painting, the male figure, Hylas, is stripped of his power. He is the hero's companion, a warrior in training, yet here he is passive. He is the victim. The power dynamic is completely reversed. The women are the hunters and the man is the prey. Look at the composition of the colors. The painting is dominated by greens and muddy browns, earth tones, but there is a flash of red, the sash around Hylas's waist. Red is the color of blood, of life, of the mortal world. It is the only warm color in the painting. The water is cool, blue-green, shadowed. That red sash is the last tether to humanity, and it is being overwhelmed by the green. The lighting is equally important. There is no bright sunlight here. It is a twilight world. Waterhouse paints the skin of the nymphs with a luminosity that seems to come from within, contrasting with the more tanned, rugged skin of Hylas. They are of two different species, the collision of the supernatural and the mundane. Now, we cannot talk about this painting without discussing its recent history. For over a century, this painting hung in the Manchester Art Gallery, a beloved masterpiece. But in January 2018, it suddenly disappeared. The museum staff removed it from the wall, leaving a blank space. The public reaction was instantaneous and furious. People called it censorship. They accused the gallery of political correctness gone mad, of trying to erase art history because it didn't fit modern sensibilities. The gallery argued that they removed it temporarily to spark a conversation about how bodies, specifically female bodies, are displayed in museums. They wanted to challenge the male gaze, the idea that women in art are passive objects for male pleasure. And in a way, they proved the painting's power. Even in its absence, Hylas and the nymphs provoked a storm. But the controversy missed a crucial point. Although the painting certainly sexualizes the nymphs, it does not make them passive. As we have seen, they are the active agents. They are the ones in control. If this is a fantasy, it is a masochistic one. It is a fantasy of surrender. The painting was returned to the wall a week later, but the conversation had changed. We can no longer look at it innocent of its modern context. When we look at it now, we ask different questions. Is this a painting of male entitlement? Is it a demonization of female power? Or is it simply a tragedy about the fragility of youth? Let's return to the narrative within their frame. What happens 1 second after this frozen moment? In the myth, Hercules searches for Hylas for a long time. He runs through the woods shouting his name until his voice is hoarse. Hylas! Hylas! The poets say that Hylas heard him. He tried to shout back, but his voice came from underwater, distorted and faint, so to Hercules it sounded only like the rustling of leaves or the bubbling of a spring. Hercules eventually had to leave. Should he abandon the search to continue his quest? Hylas was left behind, immortalized in the depths, forever young, forever held in the embrace of the water. Waterhouse captures the tragedy of that silence. The painting is incredibly quiet. There is no splashing, no struggle, just the soft, hypnotic lock of eyes. There is a detail you might have missed. Look at the water lilies again. In the Victorian language of flowers, which Waterhouse would have known fluently, the water lily represented purity of heart. But look at the specific type of lily painted here. They are nymph. They are deeply rooted in the mud, yet they bloom on the surface. They bridge the gap between the rot at the bottom and the beauty at the top. Nestled among the leaves, there are other plants. Some botanists have suggested the presence of poisonous floral in the background, hinting at the toxic nature of this paradise. It is a trap, perfectly disguised. The texture of the painting reinforces this. Waterhouse uses loose, fluid brushstrokes for the water and the background, creating a dreamlike, hazy atmosphere. But the faces are painted with sharp porcelain clarity. This contrast mimics the sensation of Hylas himself. The world around him is dissolving into a blur, and the only thing that remains sharp, the only thing that matters, are the eyes of the creature pulling him down. We all have our own version of this pull. We all have moments where we stand on the edge of a decision that cannot be undone. It might be a forbidden love, a dangerous addiction, or a risk that defies logic. We lean over the water, seeing the beauty, ignoring the danger, feeling the cold hand on our arm. If the beauty is profound enough, is the drowning worth it? Hylas stares into the eyes of his fate, and he does not pull away. The tragedy isn't that he falls. The tragedy is that he lets himself fall. If you find it as hard to look away from this image as I do, you can actually find a museum-grade reproduction of it in our shop. It's a way to bring this specific, haunting atmosphere onto your own walls. And honestly, it's the best way to support the channel so we can keep digging into the secrets behind these masterpieces. The link is in the pinned comment below. Until the next one.